What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to yet another episode of Sheehan's World. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to listen to what me and my guests have to say. Today, I have a very special guest stepping into the world. She is a content producer from NESN. She is also a third of the NESN Bruins Podcast. I'm very happy to have step into my world, Lauren Campbell. Lauren, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me on.
Of course, I'm super excited you're coming on. And I also forgot to mention, she is a member of FTF Media. This is the third member I have of FTF members stepping into my world. And she is also the first female guest stepping into my world. So very, very big stuff going on today. So we're going to get right into it, Lauren. I just want to ask where you're from and, what you are currently doing in your life.
So right now I'm working for NESN. So I'm covering all the four major sports there. I'm originally from Marlborough, city in Massachusetts, closer to Worcester than Boston. Grew up there, went to high school there. And now I'm back in the suburbs. I lived in the city for a little while. Definitely miss living there, but can't afford a house in the city, so it's a little expensive out there. But so I cover the four major New England sports in the Patriots, Celtics, Bruins, and Red Sox. I've also been covering the Boston Pride, who are playing for the Isabel Cup tonight, so it's Saturday night. So I've been doing a lot of that, and it's a lot of fun. I mean, I'm getting paid to work these games, to cover these games, to watch sports and write about them and bring people content that they want. Same with the Bruins podcast. It's something that me and my two coworkers, we get together once a week, talk Bruins, what's going on, what possibly could happen, what we want to see happen. And it's fun. It's something that it doesn't feel like work, which is even better because, I work from home. So during the day I do stuff around the house, take my dog out, do normal people stuff. And then when I go into work, it's like, oh yeah, this is work. This is pretty cool.
And as you mentioned, you're saying you get to cover all this stuff. It doesn't even really feel like work. Like you say it's work, but at the same time, it's like something you actually really enjoy doing.
Yeah, it's so much fun. It's funny because my first on-site assignment for NESN 3 years ago was Bruins Toronto Game 7.
Oh, that's awesome.
And I think it was in that moment. I had been at NESN for about 2 months, and I think it was in that moment that I was sitting up on the 9th floor, and I was like, people are paying hundreds of dollars to be here, and I'm getting paid to be here. This is the coolest thing. And it's really cool to kind of see it from a reporter's perspective as opposed to a fan, because you're really taking in the atmosphere. You're taking in how the fans are reacting, because when you're at a game, you're reacting as with what the fans are doing. So it was just totally cool in a moment that I was like, I can't believe I'm actually doing this.
Yeah, I mean, that's unbelievable. It's such a sick job to have. I mean, that's actually something I'm really trying to get into. Is be able to do, sports media and sports content and everything like that, because it is so fun. It's actually relaxing to me. I would rather do that 24/7 than sit in a cubicle and make phone calls all over the place. So it must be such a fun job to have right now. You're definitely in such an awesome place. I got to ask you, so as it's known, the sports industry, no matter where you are in the industry, it's not very easy to get into. It is a little bit difficult. So how did you find your way into NESN?
Well, I'm incredibly stubborn. So I knew that I wanted to cover sports really since I was in high school. So I knew that, journalism itself is difficult. I knew sports is even harder to break into. So I did everything I possibly could through college, working on the newspaper, covering sports, being the sports editor of the newspaper. And continuing even after college, I got a job in journalism, but it had nothing to do with sports. It was a lot of fun, but I hated it. I hated the job, to be quite honest. It was just one of those things where you get offered your first job and you're 24 years old and you're like, hell yeah, like full-time job, Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, which is pretty much unheard of in the journalism field. So I took it. But at that same time, a friend of mine had reached out saying that the company he was working for was looking for more Red Sox writers. And it was an unpaid position, which was fine because, like I said, I was working full time. And so I joined in, and that really kind of grew. So it went from Red Sox writing to Red Sox podcasting and writing to doing a ton of audio, like post-game and pre-game audio, kind of previews and then post-game wrap-ups. Then that turned into me doing Bruins stuff, running the social media accounts, and ended up going to Montreal to cover Bruins Habs. So it really, again, this is all unpaid. And this is something that really helped my exposure. And doing that, I continue to blog for several different websites, mostly just, ones that were run by my friends and just other random opportunities that I saw. And it was just something that, again, I was very grateful to have, because I know not everyone is in a position to take an unpaid position or blog. I basically was putting full-time hours into these blogs while working. I was no longer working. I worked at my first job for about 9 months before they just terminated our entire department. And so I've been working at a gym part-time for the past 8 years. Okay. And I was able to continue to do that while blogging. So again, I was in a very fortunate position, lived at home, had no responsibility. And it got to a point too where I was taking these random 9 to 5 jobs, mostly just like administrative work, because I couldn't find what I was looking for in the journalism field. Because I knew that I had been in the technology journalism field, I had been in news writing, and I liked it, but I was never feeling fulfilled from it. And I was like, I'm not feeling fulfilled from my job, which is something I'm spending at least 40 hours of my life with. I can't commit to a company. That's not fair. Right. And I feel I get more fulfillment from these places that aren't even paying me, but it's something that, like I said, it brings me joy. It makes me happy. And I know that I'm getting fulfillment out of it.
Right.
So I was working at this construction company as a marketing administrator. Again, I didn't like the job, but it paid well. It got me full-time, got me my benefits, because I was 27 or 28 at the time, and you need health insurance. So I was like, okay, let's just do this. We'll figure it out. And maybe I can just keep blogging. Still was blogging. And while I'm sitting at my desk and I'm just like having this moment of, what the hell am I doing? Like, what am I doing with my life? I'm still living at home. I need to figure out what my next step is. And I'm racking my brain, and I just don't really know what to do. And a LinkedIn message pops up. I don't really ever use LinkedIn. I do now. I promote my articles on there, but I'm not active on there. And it was the human resources department of NESN saying that they had this opportunity. Then they thought that, judging from what I had on my LinkedIn, that I'd be a good fit. And first I thought it was a scam, because I'm skeptical of everything. And I was like, all right. So she gave her the company email. So I emailed her, and we conversed a little bit back and forth, filled out the application, interviewed the next day or the day after, something like that. And then so you do the phone interview, then you do the in-person interview, and then you just play the waiting game. But what was so great, the day before I got offered the job, I went into my construction job, my 9 to 5 job. Again, just miserable, because it had been about 3 weeks since my interview, and I was like, I obviously didn't get this job. That sucks. But I was like, whatever, it's a step in the right direction. And I had to meet with my boss at 2:00 that day, and I ended up getting laid off. And I was like, this is kind of a blessing in disguise, but it sucks, because I was still really bummed about NESN. And then the next day, I brought my grandmother to a hair appointment, sitting in the hair salon, and the woman from HR emailed me. She's like, hey, I'm so sorry. This has been such a process. Can we talk next steps this afternoon? And this is 9 a.m. I'm like, I can talk right now. So she called me, she offered me the job, and I was elated. This is something that, since I was probably 15 or 16, that I knew I wanted to do. And even though it was considered an entry-level position and I considered myself to be experienced, like I didn't care. I was like, this is NESN. This is what I want to do. This is exactly what I've been so stubborn about. And 3 years later, I mean, here we are. My first year, the Red Sox won the World Series. The Patriots won the Super Bowl. Like it was a crazy first like 365 days. And it just never stops. Even in our slower, quote unquote, slower periods, we're still so busy. And it's just constant like workflow. And it's like, even though we only have football at one point in the year, we're still so busy. And I'm like, this truly is how like sports just keeps going and going. And there's always something to do. And it really got me, I mean, it got my foot in the door, and it just opened up so many other doors for connections and to really kind of establish yourself where you want to be, who you want to be. And you just become a better person and a better writer, especially when you're surrounded by really good people. I am very grateful to be surrounded by great coworkers who I can consider friends. And it's crazy that it's been 3 years, because I feel like it's been 15 years that I've been trying to do this. So yeah, it's so much fun. And I'm so grateful that I was, again, in a position to do this for so long for free. I know I'm very, very fortunate, and I cannot thank my mom enough for letting me just crash in her basement for 8 years. But, it's something that I take a lot of pride in, and I'm very, very happy that at one point I wanted to give up. And I'm so glad that my stubborn self was like, nope, we're not giving up. We'll do this till we're 40 if we have to.
Well, I got to say, bravo to you to sticking to it, because, there's a lot of people as soon as they saw it was like 3 weeks went by that they didn't get the call, they would just absolutely give up. And, you didn't give up. You still had the faith that it could still come, and you were patient. So bravo to you, honestly. Like, that is so tough to know that your like dream job is right there and you're waiting for it. And it's like, what the hell's going on? Like, no, it's awesome. So, and it was honestly a blessing in disguise to see you get laid off. Obviously you don't want that to happen, but like, that was the best thing that could have happened to you, because the next day, the best thing ever happened. So that's amazing.
Yeah, it was just a crazy, like 24 hours of emotions, because I was like, I didn't like this job, but it got me through the week. And then there was times too, I would sit there and be like, oh, I haven't even been here for a year and I'm going to quit. But like, I could work 2 full-time jobs, because this one was 8 to 4, and then I could work 4 to midnight. I was like, I might do that for a year. And I was like going through all these like crazy scenarios. And I was like, I don't even have the job at NESN yet. Like, I still have this job. This is your job. Keep your focus on this job. But it was just, like I said, crazy. Those 24 hours was just like ridiculous on my emotions.
Yeah, no, I can definitely see why. So talking about that first year, I mean, it seems like the time you've had there so far has been unbelievable. It's been so fun, everything like that. I got to ask you, how did you start to get involved with sports? Was this something that has always been in the back of your mind, like throughout your whole life? Has sports always been your thing? How did this come about?
Yeah, so my family, we are very big into sports in my family. We were always watching Red Sox and the Bruins in my house growing up. Shout out to my 92-year-old grandmother who got me into baseball.
Hey.
Huge Red Sox fan, huge Bruins fan. And, I remember on the weekend, so she lived with us growing up, and she still lives with my mom. And so when my mom would work weekends, my grandmother, we would just walk downstairs, and, she'd, take us to the park. She'd take us out to lunch. And then it was like, prop us in front of the TV and we're watching the Bruins. We're watching the Red Sox. Sunday afternoon baseball. There is nothing better. And I started learning the game from her. And my dad has family in Cleveland. So we went to a Cleveland Indians, Boston Red Sox game. This had to have been in like the mid 90s, because Manny was still in Cleveland. Manny Ramirez was still in Cleveland. And it was cool, because I was like, sports is bringing us all together. And being at Fenway, like one of my first vivid moments in my childhood is being at Fenway with my family. So just really kind of being surrounded by that constantly. My brother played baseball and hockey growing up. I played softball. I tried to play basketball, but I'm only 5'2", so that was short-lived. So that did not work. And just, I always, in high school, I always wanted to watch sports. I was watching, NESN when I woke up. I would be watching Sports Center. In high school, I only wanted to write about sports, like the whole thing. I skipped school to go to the Red Sox parade in 2008. So it's something that's always been with me my entire life. And when I realized I can make sports and writing, like my two favorite things, a career, and this is a no-brainer.
Yeah, no, it is a no-brainer. I'm the same way as you. Like the way you're talking about it right now, sports has been, my absolute whole life. And like everything I do with it, I can translate it to sports. I can get better throughout sports. Like there's so many things about sports itself that makes it so special, which is why I've like so fallen in love with it. And I'm sure the same thing as you. And now I got to ask you, like, what is sports to you? Like I have my own way of saying, like, I think sports brings so many people together. I think it's just such a special thing to have. What is sports to you? What has made you fall in love with it?
I think like you said, it brings people together, but I feel like for me, it really helps me almost heal in times, like really tough times in parts of my life.
Yeah, I understand that.
I had a really bad relationship, and then it ended in 2013, and the Red Sox won the World Series. And that kind of like, that was within days of my relationship ending. And I was like, this is my thing where everything's going to be okay. Like you're not sad or upset when your team is winning the championship. And the 2013 team obviously was so special because of the Boston bombing and just how that kind of brought the city closer together. So it really unites, your friends, it unites a whole city. And it's crazy to see how they can just bring people together. Obviously, like, Twitter's a cesspool, so it tears people apart too. It's messy in that sense. But at the end of the day, when COVID's done and we can go gather at bars and crowded bars and watch games, you're talking to complete strangers that you're never going to see again, but you're going to remember those conversations. I think of Cask and Flagon every night that I would be down there, just going into the bar, talking to people and just high-fiving strangers and hugging strangers. And it's really, really cool because I feel like you don't get that in other aspects. Like when you go out to dinner and there's no TVs around, like you're not talking to strangers. You're just talking to whoever you're with. Yeah. But you go to downtown and you just go into a bar to watch a game. Everyone in that bar is your friend. And it's just something you can't really like duplicate anywhere else.
No, I agree with you. I have to say too, when you're high-fiving the strangers, you don't think about like who they are as a person. You don't think about their political views. You don't think about anything except that moment. And that's what makes it so great, because there could be two people who are enemies, like, and they don't even know it because of their political views, of their views or views in any way. They could be enemies outside of sports, but within sports, they're family. And like, I think that's the coolest thing about it is like, you can bring all those random people together and make something so special out of it. And I think that's why sports is so great. It's unbelievable. It's so special. So yeah, I absolutely love it. I got to continue here a little bit. I want to ask you, so working at NESN during your first year when the Pats, Red Sox and everything was when they were all winning, it was a special time. Now we get to 2020 and now we're still in 2021. Just over a year later, we're still in a similar situation with the pandemic. So what has that been like working at NESN, working in sports where you need sports to work, you need these teams to play? What has that been like during this whole time period?
It's been an adjustment, especially at the beginning when for those 4 or 5 months, whatever it was, there were no sports. And part of working in sports and the fun of it is in your mind, you always have something to write about, to watch, you always have a job. And then all of a sudden in March 2020, it became, what is my job in danger? What's going to happen? There's a lot of panic at the beginning because we also had people from NESN at the Celtics Jazz game before Rudy Gobert tested positive. So in March 2020, we had no idea what COVID was really like. So there was a lot of panic in the beginning. And And I got through the rest of the week. We were in the office. And then that Monday, like the following Monday or Tuesday, we had a small department meeting just saying that our health and safety is most important. And we're going to be working from home for the next like 5 days. And I was like, okay, cool. Like I can do this, whatever. And, those 5 days turned into over a year later, we're still working from home. It's been, I think the biggest thing is communication among your teammates. We're not in the office, so you can't just turn around and be like, hey, did you see this? Or stop just to have like a random conversation in the middle of your shift. And I think that's part that we really miss is just kind of that human interaction. It's not the same as on Zoom or when we communicate on text or through our Microsoft Teams app or whatever we do. So, and it really sucked too, because we had 2 new team members come on in January and February. They were only in the office. I don't even think they got like 2 full months before we went home, and we've still never come back. So it's, trying to build those solid relationships. And I think we've done a good job. Mm-hmm. It's just so different because we're not in person. I think the craziest thing to me was when sports started up and I was covering the Bruins Stanley Cup run. I'm sitting on my couch in my pajamas, like a 12 o'clock game, 1 o'clock game, whatever it was. And I'm like, this is so crazy to me, because 1 year ago, I was sitting at TD Garden covering Bruins Stanley Cup run again. And here I am, just like, my hair's up, I've got no makeup on, like completely, like just something I never thought I would do. Like if you told me when I entered this business, like, oh, one day you're going to cover Stanley Cup and the Red Sox season all from home. Like, no, we're not. Like you need to go outside and get some fresh air, because that's crazy talk. And here we are doing just that. It's been a lot different because obviously we're not there in person. I do really commend the leagues and the teams for making their players so accessible via Zoom. Sometimes, in the locker room, it's hard to get into that scrum, and maybe you can't get all the questions that you want to ask, or somebody is asking, several questions, and it's hard. I mean, it's hard to get in there and get your question out, and it's a little more organized on Zoom. It's a little more personal, of course, but we've made it work somehow, some way, and it's still continuing. I'm, like I said, I'm still working from home and covering Bruins games from my couch. I covered the Celtics game last night from my couch. And as much as I love it, like I love the comfort of my own home, I'm ready to be back, talk to people, make those meaningful connections, and just live for that like post-game chaos or the last second shot chaos. Like you don't get that same rush watching it from your house than you do when you're in person, or even when you're in the office surrounded by sports nuts like yourself. It's just like, it's an adjustment. And I feel like we've done a really, really good job all around as a team and as a company too. But I'm so ready. Like, what are we in March, the end, almost April?
Yeah.
I'm ready. Like if for the Stanley Cup playoffs come around again, I don't even care if the Bruins don't make playoffs. Like send me wherever, whoever's playing. I want to go. Like I want to be back there. And we've all adjusted pretty well. I think so anyway. In the beginning, obviously it was very tough because there's so much unknown. But now that we see a light at the end of the tunnel, I feel like we're starting to be a little more positive about we are going to see our coworkers one day again.
Yeah, no, and it's starting to come back a little bit. I mean, the best part you can see is capacity in stadiums and arenas are starting to come back, which is so nice to see. So it really is like a light at the end of the tunnel, and you'll be able to get back out there and actually make those connections again. So another question I have to ask, you probably just told it to me, but I want to see what your favorite story was during this pandemic. I know there hasn't been a lot for there to be a favorite story, but what has been the most interesting thing that has happened during this time?
Oh man. I think, well, this happened before, but I feel like, Mookie Betts got traded in January or February 2020, like right before all of this hit. And to see kind of the fallout of that roll into the pandemic, because then it's like, Mookie Betts hadn't signed his extension at that point, and we were speculating like he may not even play a game for the Dodgers and he may sign somewhere else. So that was an interesting storyline. I think kind of anything really surrounding the Bruins, Bruins are really like my forte. I follow them a lot. But what I thought too was really interesting is how the players were a little more active on social media. They were becoming a little more relatable to the fans and everything.
Mm-hmm.
Like David Pastrnak was eating off the floor with his dog. And it's like, those are the stories that, and any other given day, it wouldn't be a story, but it's a story during a pandemic because nothing's going on.
Yeah.
So there was that. There was so much around the Red Sox too. I think my favorite from the Red Sox was probably once Ron Renneke was told he wasn't coming back. Immediately, everyone's like, "Well, that means Alex Cora is coming back." See, like how much speculation really comes of this, and just to see that, the second something happens, fans and even media, they're just right there, and they're like, "Here's this scenario. Here's why it would work. Here's why it won't work." And then the most notable story, I wouldn't really call it my favorite, but it was Tom Brady leaving New England. It's funny because the night before I stayed up later than I usually do. So I slept until like 11, and I woke up, my brother, who's a huge Patriots fan, like football is his life. He plans his vacations around it. He got married in the summer, so he wouldn't miss football. And he had texted me, my mom had texted me, my fiance's mom had texted him. And like, I felt like my phone had blown up, and I was like, oh, Tom Brady, like really left.
Like and he did.
Like, I'm like, not only did he start his Instagram post with "Forever a Patriot," but then he's like, we're in the middle of a pandemic, and now he's just like, I'm gonna leave you guys hanging for like the last thing.
And it was on St. Patrick's Day too, I think, which is the worst thing to do to Bostonians. No bars open or anything.
So I was just like, wow, like I was like, I think that's too when I knew, I'm like, this is going to be a very, very long pandemic. It's going to be a very long year. This is really how it's starting. But at the same time, I was grateful for it because it gave us a ton of content for weeks.
Yeah.
So it's funny to see how one story of, Tom Brady leaving, that's the story, spirals into weeks and weeks of content. And I was like, if he stayed, we wouldn't have this kind of content going. So that was, again, not my favorite, but it provided a nice wave of workflow for like 2 or 3 weeks. But then after that, I was like, twiddling my thumbs, like praying that Jason Tatum or David Pastrnak posted on Instagram.
Yeah. It was definitely, I could not imagine being in your position during the pandemic, because that must have been just so difficult. Like, just again, like trying to search for content, like even though the world may have stopped in that time momentarily, like your job requires you to keep going. So I would be so stressed out to be in that position. Like, all right, what are we going to get this week? Like, how are we going to make this work? What are we going to put out?
Yeah, it definitely got stressful for sure. And,
yeah,
it helped us to become more creative. We had to really think outside the box for our content. And like I said, we made it work, but not without, stressful nights, probably some tears shed and everything in between.
Hey, that's what makes sports so special, right? There's always going to be some tears shed here and there, no matter where you're working in the sports world. We are coming towards the end of the show, but I do want to ask you one more thing here. What do you expect it to be like when you get back after everything is said and done? What is that sense of, emotion or whatever it is going to be like once you get back into the office and it starts to feel a little bit normal again?
I always joke with one of my coworkers. I was like, I'm probably going to cry when I walk into TD Garden for the first time in over a year. But I was like, I actually might. I might just literally be so overcome with emotion.
It's that special. It
is. And I don't think we realize it when we're in the moment and when we're doing this for so long and then just stops. Like, it's taken from us. I think getting back into the office, getting back on site is going to be such a relief. And I think it's going to really put into perspective how much we miss it and how much being around people and being around our coworkers. We spend so much time with these people every week. We're spending 40 hours of our lives at least with the same people every week, and not being able to do that it's tiring and it's straining, because it's, you're seeing the same people. Listen, I love my dog and I love my fiance, but I would like to see some different faces every now and then. And I think it'll be like a sense of relief too, that, this isn't lasting forever, even though it's felt like it's forever. And, we're so close to the end, or we're so close, like, to the light is at the end of the tunnel. You can totally see it now. So just to be able to get back in there, I'm going to feel so much better. It's going to make me, I feel like my workflow is still very fine. I feel like I'm just as productive at home as I am in the office, but I feel like it's going to give me even more motivation, just because we're back, we're getting more into a routine. And it's just going to be very, very happy. I feel like it's going to be a very happy time. Everyone's going to be in a really good mood. And then, the Red Sox or Bruins will shatter that, but like they do every year. But it's going to be really fun. And I'm counting down the days. I've been counting down the days for the last year, but it's, like I said, it's going to be emotional too, just because it's been an emotional year. It's been trying on everyone. And I think all of us are just ready to get back to some sense of normalcy.
Right. I hope, that all comes about soon. We're definitely getting close to it. Yes. Like, again, seeing a certain percentage capacity allowed at games is the start of, getting to the end of the tunnel. And seeing the light at the end of the tunnel. So definitely, like, I can definitely understand why it would be, so emotional to step into TD Garden again, or, be able to walk into Fenway again and do your job and be able to cover all the sports and everything you've grown up on. So I can definitely understand that. I would probably do the same. I'm not going to lie. If I walked into TD Garden after this, I'd be like, oh my God, it's been so long. Like,
right? It's like $14 for beer. That's totally fine. I'll take 2. Like,
yeah, no, I'll take 3 even.
I'll come back. Let me put these down and I'll come back.
I could definitely understand it. I feel you on everything. And I bet the listeners can too. I bet, once everything starts to come back to normal, emotions will run high. That's for sure. So we are coming towards the end of the show here, Lauren. I wanted to thank you so much for stepping into my world. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to do this with me. I really appreciate this. This is very special. Before I have you plug your stuff, I'm going to do a giveaway real quick. So you can just sit tight real quick. And all my listeners, as I promised, I have all the names all in here. I did this. I cut up all the names, so it's fair. I'm not going to do a random generator so people can actually see me do it. So, oops, name fell out there. So I'm actually going to mix it up a bit. You can actually see it, which is nice. So people can see me dropping the names here. All right. So I'm going to shut my eyes, make sure all the papers are in there. All right. They are. Nothing's around. All right. I'm pulling out the name. See who it is. And congratulations to John Wall. Buddy, you are the winner of the Sheehan's World giveaway, the first ever one. Congratulations to you, bud. I'm really happy to see that. And everyone that entered, thank you very much. Again, all the names were in there. I cut them all up to make it as fair as possible. And I did it live right here so you could all see it. And I had Lauren. So we all see that Lauren was here to see it. So Lauren, so she can attest it was fair. So Lauren, now that we're at the end, thank you again. Can you do me a favor and plug where everyone can find you?
Yeah, of course. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Lauren. So it's 3 laws and then Lauren with 4 R's. And you can find all of my stuff on NESN.com. You can also hear me on the Snipe and Selly pod on FTF and the Stealing Second pod on FTF, and the NESN Bruins podcast as well. So I'm kind of everywhere, but follow me on Twitter, follow me on Instagram, all that good stuff.
Hey, you heard her. She is everywhere. So she'll be easy to find after this show. Lauren, again, thank you so much for stepping into my world. I really appreciate this. This was such great conversation. Everyone that entered the contest, I thank you again. Your entries are very appreciated, and I will do one again soon. And to everyone that tuned in and listened, thank you so much for doing this and taking time out of your day to come step into my world to see what Lauren and I had to say. Thank you, everyone. I'll catch you next time. Peace. Love you all. Hope to have you step into my world yet again.